The top stories tonight in Y News. President Rodrigo Duterte calls the Philippine Congress to a special session on October 13 to 16, 2020.
A substantial number of COVID-19 deaths was reported as dead on arrival in hospitals, according to the Department of Health.
The government now allows face-to-face training and assessments in technical vocational institutions and TESTA technology institutions for outbound overseas Filipino workers in general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine areas.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources assured senators today that dolomite sand placed along a portion of Manila Bay will not be totally washed away.
Australians urged to look after their mental health this month. Meanwhile, Japan calls on Australia for support towards membership in the Five Eyes intelligence sharing network.
The next presidential debate between U.S. President Donald Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden seems to be uncertain now. Meanwhile, President Trump is ready to appear in public events, according to his doctor.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, October 9, 2020. I am William Theo. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world.
Seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I'm Angelo Castro III.
President Rodrigo Duterte calls the Congress to a special session next week. Malacañang Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles believes President Rodrigo Duterte thinks the suspension of the House plenary session is wrong. Our palace correspondent, Rosalie Cos, tells us why.
Malacañang reveals today that President Rodrigo Duterte has called the Philippine Congress to a special session on October 13 to 16, 2020. According to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, the intention is to resume the congressional deliberations on the proposed 2021 national budget.
Ito po ay para sa October 13 hanggang October 16. Ito po ay para talakayin ang national budget at sa kaparehong proklamasyon po ay sinertify as urgent ng ating Pangulo ang proposed 2021 budget. Ginawa po ito ng Presidente dahil importanteng maipasa, maisabatas ang proposed 2021 budget dahil ito po ang gagamitin natin laban sa COVID-19 pandemic.
Meanwhile, the suspension of the plenary session last Tuesday in the lower chamber should not have happened because that is not according to the budget calendar. This is what Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles thinks about the message of President Duterte to the House of Representatives last night. The chief executive gave an ultimatum to the bickering camps of House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano and Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco over House speakership. He said if this issue is not resolved, government service gets hampered, and the budget gets delayed, he will do the necessary action.
We always forget that there is something more higher than just delaying or maneuvering in Congress because everybody wants to be speaker. I am not going to give a timeline. Hindi mga diktador lang gumagawa ng ganun. Gusto ko na ayusin ninyo. If and when I see that there will be a delay and it will result in the derailment of government service, I will, I said, solve the problem for you.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Malacañang commends the move of PhilHealth CEO and President Dante Gueran to direct all senior officers of the state health insurer to tender their courtesy resignation, according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. This shows Geran's decisiveness to follow the directive of President Rodrigo Duterte to reorganize PhilHealth, make erring officials accountable, and give the agency a fresh start. Geran has carried out an old PhilHealth board resolution in which he wants all senior executives as well as vice president of PhilHealth all over the country to step down.
The Department of Health said this afternoon that a substantial number of COVID-19 deaths was reported as dead on arrival in hospitals. This was after Senator Joel Villanueva asked Health Secretary Francisco Duque III in today's Senate hearing on the proposed 2021 budget next year the reason behind the number of COVID-19 patients who died without getting admitted to a hospital. The senator cited the DOH data drop as of October 5, 2020, showing that 3,279 or 56% of over 5,000 Filipinos who died from COVID-19 were not admitted to a hospital to receive treatment. The health secretary said that one of the reasons for this is that there were patients who were proclaimed dead on arrival at the emergency room in various hospitals. He also cited the health-seeking behavior of Filipinos.
This can also be attributable to the health-seeking behavior of most Filipinos, especially the poor, na naantay lang hanggat sa talagang maging malubang-malubhada po ang karamdaman bago po pumunta sa ospital.
And that is what the Universal Healthcare Law would like to address, according to Duque. The Health Department is proposing a 2021 budget worth 203 billion pesos, in which the implementation of the Universal Healthcare Law will be one of the top priorities.
Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco confirmed that there is a resolution going around lawmakers in the House of Representatives. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
Some lawmakers are pushing to resume the plenary session in the House of Representatives. Now, a resolution is going around the members of the House of Representatives. Lawmakers from the Makabayan bloc are among those who wish to reopen the session in the coming days. Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate says there are many government agencies whose budget still needs deliberation.
Hindi kailan na ang budget na ito ay tinatawag na election budget for 2021. At kaya gusto nga nating talagang busisihin ito dahil hindi lang unprecedented ang laki nito, napakaraming mga pondo rito na sa tingin ng Makabayan bloc at tingin ng mga iba't ibang sektor ay hindi naman makikinabang ang bayan kung hindi makikinabang lamang ang iilan.
Marinduque Representative Lord Alan Velasco confirmed the information that there is indeed a resolution circulating among lawmakers seeking to resume the plenary session. According to Congressman Velasco, resuming the session is the only way to pass the 2021 proposed national budget on time. Velasco adds that the lower house may ask the Senate to extend their session days until they finish and approve the budget on third and final reading to ensure its timely passage. Velasco also believes that politics must be set aside as the budget is a much bigger issue than the speakership. Also, the Congress must not fail the public whose lives and health depend on the programs of the government. Velasco also assures that the lawmakers are ready to work even during weekends to finish the deliberation and approve the 4.5 trillion peso proposed 2021 national budget right on time. Meanwhile, Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano welcomes the President's call for a special session of Congress on October 13 to 16. Cayetano said that he is grateful for the President's intervention for addressing the issue concerning the budget free from politicking and intrigues. Cayetano adds the Congress will continue to work and prepare for the swift passage of this measure to ensure its responsiveness and relevance to the recovery efforts for 2021. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the PNP is in favor of banning the use of karaoke and videoke during daytime when online or distance learning classes are ongoing. Let's find out why from Asher Kadapan Jr.
To avoid disturbing students when attending their online or modular classes, the Philippine National Police is coordinating with local chief executives on recommending to pass an ordinance banning the use of videoke machines and similar equipment.
So ito nga yung mga bawal, ito mga videoke, bawal yung mga ingay sa lansangan, at iba pa na mga inuman. So in essence, we will implement these ordinances while liaisoning with our LGUs na mag-craft ng mga ordinansa natin at conducive na lugar ang ating mga residential area sa pag-aaral ng ating mga kabataan.
In Navotas City, although the local government is already crafting one such ordinance, Mayor Toby Tiangco calls on the Navoteños to observe such practice prior to the ordinance's passage. Today, the Manila Police District made rounds in Manila City to inform residents about newly signed Ordinance 8688, which bans the use of videoke, karaoke, and other noise-producing equipment from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Saturday. The order comes after the city government received complaints from parents of students whose online classes were disturbed by neighbors who use karaoke machines during daytime since the school year opened on Monday, October 5. The ordinance aims to provide a conducive environment for students studying at home under the distance learning program the government is implementing due to the coronavirus pandemic. Barangay officials and police personnel are tasked to implement the city law. First-time offenders will be penalized with a 1,000 peso fine. Second-time offenders will be fined 2,000 pesos, and a 3,000 peso penalty will be imposed on the third and succeeding offenses. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that almost 3,000 new cases were reported today, raising the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to 334,770. That number is just a bit over 3,000 less than Saudi Arabia's total confirmed cases as of today. We are still placed 19th above Turkey's more than 330,000 cumulative coronavirus cases. The National Capital Region logged the most new cases with more than 1,000. The number of active cases in the country further increased to 53,311, of which 85.8% are in mild condition, while 9.9% are asymptomatic. We have lost 83 more patients, but through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 1,045 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 275,307. Thanks be to God.
Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of more than 36.5 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignties. That's after close to 339,000 new cases were recorded since yesterday. The fast-spreading disease has claimed over 1.06 million lives. Sadly, more than 5,000 patients died from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. While over 25.4 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection. Thanks be to God.
The Department of Health is helping Gamaleya Research Institute, the manufacturer of COVID-19 candidate vaccine Sputnik, in looking for a contract research organization in the country. Our health correspondent, Aiko Miguel, explains why.
Part of the regulatory process in approving a potential vaccine in the country is for a manufacturer to have a contract research organization in the Philippines to help them monitor clinical trials. According to the DOH, the Philippines has continuous negotiations with the Russian government for Sputnik's clinical trial in the country to move forward.
In a regulatory process para makapag-clinical trial ng isang manufacturer sa ating bansa kailangan meron silang contract research organization dito sa Pilipinas para mag-manage ng clinical trial kasama nila. So ngayon, tinutulungan na natin ng Gamaleya Institute so that they can find an appropriate contract research organization dito sa atin which is reputable para maumpisahan na rin natin while we wait for the documents na hinihingi natin.
Gamaleya Research Institute, the manufacturer of Sputnik, is one of the 3 vaccine manufacturers who have submitted their applications to a vaccine experts panel, manifesting their intention to conduct phase 3 clinical trials in the Philippines. The 2 others are Johnson & Johnson's, which manufactured Janssen vaccine, and China's Sinovac, which created CoronaVac. Undersecretary Vergere also gave an update saying that 6 pharmaceutical companies have also signed confidentiality disclosure agreements to share their clinical trial results. One of them is Gamaleya Research Institute from Russia, 3 from China, 1 from Australia, and 1 from Chinese Taipei.
Allow nito, ma-allow na niya yung vaccine expert panel para ma-review na yung kanilang phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trial results. So 3 po galing sa China, yung Sinovac, yung Sinopharm, and tsaka yung Anhui-Zhifei. And then isa nga yung sa Russia, yung Gamaleya. Yung isa yung sa Australia, yung sa University of Queensland, and isa galing sa Chinese Taipei, yung Ad-Immune.
Meanwhile, according to the DOH, there are just a few other processes that need to be completed before the Avigan trial begins. Once they're done, the clinical trial, which includes 100 COVID-19 patients, may start next week. The Avigan clinical trial will last for 9 months and will be conducted in 4 hospitals in the country.
Ang kulang na lang natin yung insurance, no? Merong minor na comment ang legal service namin for this insurance document. Yun na lang, but we already gave the go signal to the proponent. They are now going to start recruiting participants for the trial. So pag nakapag-recruit na tayo, hopefully by next week talagang officially starting na tayo.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The sub-technical working groups of the Interagency Task Force against COVID-19 are expected to meet following the issuance of IATF Resolution number 78. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
The Interagency Task Force directs its sub-technical working groups to formulate their recommendations on guidelines applicable to areas that will be placed under the new normal. The meeting will be composed of health experts panels from the Department of Health's Technical Advisory Group, Healthcare Professionals Alliance Against COVID-19, as well as economic experts. The new normal is expected to begin after the government's National Action Plan reaches Phase 3, expected in the last quarter of 2020 to the first quarter of 2021. Meanwhile, the government now allows face-to-face training and assessments of technical vocational institutions and tests the technology institutions for outbound overseas Filipino workers in general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine areas. This include training and assessments for domestic work, caregiver, housekeeping qualifications, and ships catering. The IATF also approves the health and safety protocols for the conduct of a plebiscite in the first quarter of 2021 to ratify the division of Palawan Province pursuant to Republic Act No. 11259. Registered voters between 18 and 21 years old, those who are 60 years old and above, people with immunodeficiency, comorbidity, other health risk, and pregnant women shall be exempted from mobility restrictions for the purpose of voting. The Commission on Elections is encouraged to create safety mechanisms and procedures so that confirmed COVID-19 patients can exercise their right to vote. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
In other news, the Department of Education, or DepEd, still expects errors in TV broadcast lessons. Dante Amento tells us why.
Errors in future broadcast lessons of DepEd TV is inevitable due to a rush in production and the lack of personnel performing new line of work, according to Undersecretary Elaine Pascua. The DepEd TV team, composed of scriptwriters, video editors, and other production personnel, needs to produce 130 to 220 TV lessons or episodes every week, together with newly trained teacher broadcasters.
This is not even the last time that there will be errors. There will always be errors, I will assure you, because we are not perfect. I will tell you why. We are producing 27 videos every day. We are producing 130 to 220 videos every week. And we have a workforce of about 130 to less than 200 teacher broadcasters. And we are doing this every day. Nagahabol kami.
In spite of this, DepEd remains positive that little by little, their personnel will execute the job perfectly, especially there are individuals who had shown intention to help them for free. DepEd stresses that it welcomes criticisms, correction, and suggestions for them to improve what they broadcast.
We have been here for just 4 or 5 months. We are not really journalists and broadcasters in this line of work. Our teachers are still being trained to be teacher broadcaster. Or if the media and if the public are looking for perfect episode, give us so much time, but we cannot do these things at this time.
Just recently, DepEd has earned criticisms from the public over an error in a math equation in one of the DepEd TV lessons. Dantiamento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Some senators disagreed with the proposed deferment of 13th month pay of distressed employers. According to Senator Coco Pimentel, employees are more distressed compared to what he described as capital-providing employers. He adds the employees' interests and needs must not be sacrificed. Meanwhile, for Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon, Presidential Decree Number 851, or the enabling law for the 13th month pay, does not allow any exemption. According to Drilon, who is also a former labor secretary, the implementing rules and regulations, or IRR, that allows the exemption for distressed employers is questionable as going beyond the law. And Senate Labor Committee Chair Senator Joel Villanueva calls on DOLE to convene the Tripartite Council and conduct consultations to come up with a win-win solution for both employees and employers amid the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The distribution of free PUV cards began today. Some passengers are happy, but some complain about the tedious process. Joan Nano tells us why.
A lot of passengers waited in queue earlier today to avail of free beep cards. AF Payments Incorporated initially distributed 2,500 beep cards for free to several commuters in Monumento, Caloocan today. One of them is Manny Gan, who works in Parañaque City. He is a regular passenger who hails a ride on the EDSA busway. Manny said being able to avail of BUV cards free of card cost is favorable to many passengers like him.
Napakalaki po. Kung bibili niya na 100 piso, ilang kilong bigas na po. Sana po mas marami po makakuha para mas marami ng benepisyo po. Sa hirap po ng buhay ngayon kung ano yung makukuha ang maganda ng taong bayan, maibigay po sana lahat.
Passengers were required to fill out a registration form and present a valid ID. Free beep cards were given from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. No distribution was done during the rush hour. Despite this, passengers are still grateful for free beep cards.
Maraming salamat sa nagpatupad nitong delay. Malaking tulong. Okay naman po para malaking tulong naman po para hindi na maistorbo sa kilahan.
Okay naman po, at least nakatipid ng konti. Malaking tipid na po yan.
We also went to Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange or PITX, where Tripco and Pearl cards were given for free to passengers. Before, Pearl card cost 100 pesos plus a 50 peso credit upon buying. But now, a Pearl card initially cost 150 pesos. On the other hand, Tripco requires its passenger to fill out a registration form. Passenger information will be encoded in the Tripco system. This is to identify which passengers have availed of free Tripco cards. But some passengers complained about the tedious registration process. They were told that they would receive a call after filling out the form.
Kaso matagal ang proseso. Kanina pa ako rito. Atay ko raw tawag sa phone. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa tumatawag para makuha yung card na yun. Eh baka mamaya umalis na yung bus, wala pa yung card.
Meanwhile, sources says that freebie cards distributed today were part of AF Payments' commitment of 125,000 pieces of cards prior to the release of the memorandum order and not in compliance with the LTFRB's order. The UNTV news team tried to reach AF Payments for clarification of the issue, but they are yet to answer our queries. Joanna, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources assured senators today the dolomite sand placed along a portion of Manila Bay will not be totally washed away. During today's Senate hearing on the proposed 2021 budget of the agency, DNR Undersecretary Jonas Leona said the sand will not be totally washed out as there are engineering interventions in place, such as the use of geotubes. He adds they will continue to use the dolomite for the 500-meter beach nourishment project if there is still a contractor that can supply the agency. According to Leones, the DNR believes the dolomite acts as an enhancer of the sand in Manila Bay. Leona said they had to stop temporarily the placing of dolomite along the waters of Manila Baywalk due to problems with the contractor and the violation committed by the supplier in Cebu.
Yung continuous rehabilitation, or like for example dredging, silting, and then water quality improvement, tuloy-tuloy pa rin po sa buong Baywalk. Ang nagkaroon lang ng problema yung small portion, yung paglagay po natin ng dolomite, but the project will still continue.
Environment Secretary Roy Simato adds the project is also part of his plan to make the Manila Baywalk a tourist center in Manila. According to the Secretary, they are set to report to the Supreme Court that the agency has cleaned up and rehabilitated the Manila Baywalk in compliance with the court's mandamus.
Itong Baywalk na ito, I will make this really as a tourist center. Makikita yung foreigners na nandyan yung magandang business natin dito sa Pilipinas. Itong kabila naman, the fishing village. Ito lang kasi may pakita natin sa Manila ngayon.
But for Senator Nancy Binay, the budget used in the beach nourishment project could have been used for the cleaning of the waters in Manila Bay, which is the real goal of the rehabilitation.
Yeah, maganda ho talaga yung nakikita natin ngayon na white sand, pero yung babalikan natin, yung madumi pa rin ang tubig. Hindi ko alam kung aabutan, baka apo sa tuhod na yun, yung pwede na mag-swimming dyan sa Manila Bay kasi malinis na yung tubig. I think that is the ultimate goal.
The 389 million peso beach nourishment project, according to DNR, is part of the Manila Bay rehabilitation, 28 million pesos of which was used for the procurement and transfer of the dolomite sand in Manila Baywalk. The agency has allocated 1.7 billion pesos for the Manila rehabilitation out of its 25.5 billion pesos proposed budget for next year. Now, here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. Prepare for a cloudy weekend. A low-pressure area or LPA and the southwest monsoon or hanging habagat are affecting parts of the country. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says as of 3 p.m. today, the LPA was located 425 kilometers west-northwest of Coron, Palawan. The LPA and the southwest monsoon will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Metro Manila, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Bicol Region, Visayas, Zamboanga Peninsula, Northern Mindanao, and Caraga. The rest of Mindanao will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers due to localized thunderstorms. Meanwhile, Ilocos Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, and Cagayan Valley will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated light rains due to the northeasterly surface wind flow. Take extra precautions because possible flash floods or landslides may occur during severe thunderstorms. No tropical cyclone advisory is issued.
Department of Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara orders the National Bureau of Investigation and the Bureau of Corrections to conduct an investigation on the reported riot among persons deprived of liberty inside the New Bilibid prison. The riot resulted in the death of 9 PDL. Several others were injured. The NBI is tasked to file appropriate charges against all persons involved and found accountable for the untoward incident. The NBI shall report its findings to the DOJ within 10 days. Meanwhile, Bucor is tasked to identify all the PDLs who participated in the riot, file corresponding charges if evidence warrants, and make immediate relief and preventive suspension of Bucor officials who are found liable for negligence. The DOJ has also directed Bucor to conduct extensive search at the maximum security compound of the NBP and confiscate all items or contraband and suspend their privileges. Bucor is given 5 days to give its initial report.
And for the news abroad, here's Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia.
William, a grain industry expert, warns that Australia's canola industry will be dangerously exposed if it does not embrace value adding and urgently diversify its export markets. This comes after the blindsiding event in the grains industry in May, when a sudden 80.5% tariff on Australian barley was imposed by China amid growing political tensions between Canberra and Beijing. Along with this, China has also imposed crippling tariffs on banning some beef exporters and urged students in China against studying in Australia. Trade Minister Simon Birmingham said that nations need to work closer rather than creating new barriers as the world seeks to recover from the deadly coronavirus pandemic. He even made a warning saying, "We will all win together or we all lose together." In June this year, Senator Birmingham announced the official start of free trade talks with the UK. He told the National Press Club that Australia would be looking to secure better market access for goods, exports, especially in agriculture, and high standard rules for digital trade and investment to expand Australia's already deep economic relationship. Furthermore, Australian Export Grains Innovation Centre Chief Economist Professor Ross Kingwell said that the canola sector is at the mercy of the European policy. He said that Australia is very exposed to whatever happens in the European Union, and the demand for canola that is used for biodiesel is predicated on the Renewable Energy Directive policy. He also emphasized how fortunate it is that Australia has been able to prove and verify that how it produces canola and the way it's delivered into the Europe has a small emissions footprint, which provides Australia lucrative access to that market. However, he raised concerns that if ever there is a change in that policy, such as tightening their regulations or raising the environmental bar, and Australia's agricultural industry can no longer satisfy that, then immediately Australia would lose access to that market. The Australian Bureau of Agricultural and Resource Economics and Sciences predicts an increase of 42% or 2.4 million tons of canola exports will take place in the next financial year. Moreover, according to the ABARES latest data, the Australian canola industry will undergo increased competition as price premiums become an incentive for producers of other feedstocks, including sunflower, for achieving necessary greenhouse gas emission thresholds. The UK was Australia's second largest trading partner almost 50 years ago, and currently Australia is the 12th largest trading partner. Professor Kingwell also introduced the idea of finding alternative uses for the canola being produced, be that in the feed industry or differentiated markets. As As part of the 2020 World Mental Health Day campaign for the month of October, Australians are encouraged to break down the stigma surrounding mental health and to support the campaign. Our fellow correspondent here in Australia, Mavian Dog, will join us tonight to detail why. Yes, Maeve.
Marielle, Mental Health Australia encourages individuals and organizations who can support the campaign during this Mental Health Month of October as a call to action for Australians experiencing mental health conditions, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mental Health Australia CEO Dr. Leanne Bigley said that the aim of the World Mental Health Day campaign is to break down the stigma about mental health by celebrating it tomorrow, October 10, as well as encourage Australians to look after their well-being by following the October Mental Health Month calendar. Dr. Bigley explained that the calendar is a great starting point for the campaign as it outlines actions that can be done each day which contribute to looking after one's mental health. Mental health illness affects 1 in 5 Australians annually, and an increased focus can be seen this year as the current pandemic impacts more Australians. The indicators of a thriving workplace report by the National Mental Health Organization Superfriend shows that 3 in 5 workers, or 59.5%, experienced mental health conditions this year, and over a quarter struggled for the first time due to the pandemic. According to Prime Minister Scott Morrison, the country's budget last year recorded an additional investment of $750 million for mental health resources, and more funding has been provided since then in response to the COVID-19 crisis. Here's what Prime Minister Morrison said in a recent press conference.
The telehealth initiative alone, which I think is now seeing almost 50% or thereabouts of consultations that are happening in mental health, are actually happening through a telehealth provider. That has been a significant investment of resources to support mental health. In addition to that, there's been further resources provided, whether it's to Lifeline or Headspace or many of the other providers, and that's been incredibly important.
Back to you, Marielle.
Maeve, can you tell us in what way has COVID-19 affected the workers in Australia and what industries were mainly impacted and have seen an increased experiences in mental health conditions?
Marielle, according to the new research conducted by Superfriend, transport, postal, warehousing industries, as well as public administration and safety and retail workers were the ones struggling the most with mental health illness during this pandemic. Out of the 10,000 workers that were surveyed, 60% said they became less productive due to mental health concerns. Superfriend CEO Margot Lydon also said that casual workers and teenagers are also facing job insecurities as their work hours get cut involuntarily and by not having access to mental health programs unlike permanent employees. Despite these outcomes, the survey also found that almost 30% became more productive during this time of pandemic because of the flexible working hours, reduced commute to work, physical health benefits, and being able to pursue personal interests. Marielle?
All right, thank you, Mavian Dog, reporting live from Queensland, Australia. The next presidential debate between U.S. President Donald Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden is now uncertain. One of our correspondents in the USA, Sonny Cos, will tell us why.
The schedule and the setup for the third and final debates between U.S. President Donald Trump and Democrat Joe Biden is in disarray. This following the refusal of U.S. President Donald Trump to participate in the second virtual debate scheduled on October 15. The Commission on Presidential Debates said it would be held remotely for the two candidates after Trump tested positive for the coronavirus Friday last week. However, the chief executive slammed the format change, refused to participate, and instead wanted to resume his campaign rallies. Following this, both Biden and Trump's camps proposed pushing back the third debate, which has been planned for October 22, the supposed final encounter before the November 3 elections. It is now just less than 4 weeks before the election day. And with millions of voters casting early ballots, the pressure is much on Trump's camp to turn around a campaign that is trailing Biden nationally. The debate could either provide a reset or expose Trump to political risks. Sanacos, UNTV News and Rescue, USA. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Japan calls on Australia for support towards membership in the Five Eyes intelligence sharing network to help counter an aggressive and bullying China and respond to the U.S. retreat from global governance. Joining us tonight is one of our fellow correspondents here in Australia, Marvy Delphine, to tell us why live. Yes, Marvy.
Marielle, highly respected former Japanese ambassador to Australia, Sumio Kusaka, has called for an urgent expansion of the already strong Australia-Japan relationship. This comes as both countries face the biggest strategic and economic challenge in balancing alliances and competing superpowers in the Indo-Pacific amidst the U.S. presidential election held at a time of unprecedented Chinese aggression. Mr. Kusaka said Japan and Australia should promote a free and open Indo-Pacific in collaboration with the US, India, and ASEAN countries, broadening our wings further to include like-minded nations such as the UK and France would be an effective and practical way to curb China's dangerous ambitions. Prime Minister Scott Morrison is said to be planning a visit to Japan soon to meet new Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, who took office last month. This follows Australian Foreign Minister Marise Payne's travel in Tokyo this week to meet counterparts from Quad, which is composed of Australia, Japan, the US, and India. Mr. Kusaka says Australia and Japan could work even more closely if Japan was also allowed to join the US, Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand in the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance to form Six Eyes. The Five Eyes Pact members hold regular meetings to coordinate economic responses during the COVID-19 pandemic in a constantly changing geopolitical environment. Marielle?
Marvy, the Trump administration has earned some credit for taking a firm stand against China's unilateral claims in the South China Sea in defense of the international rule of law. Along with the U.S., how does Australia and Japan plan to establish a peaceful coexistence with China?
Marielle, as former Japanese ambassador to Australia, Kusaka emphasizes Japan and Australia could help meet the infrastructure needs of less developed nations in the Indo-Pacific. This is in hopes of helping China understand that those nations do not need to rely solely on its Belt and Road Initiative to improve their infrastructure. And so, Mr. Kusaka is also pushing for Taiwan to be included in the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, which is currently experiencing threatening military behavior from China. Marielle?
All right, Marvy, thank you for that report, live from Perth, Australia. Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases in countries worst hit by the pandemic. The United States of America's number of confirmed cases continues to grow. Now it's over 7.6 million. The USA still has the highest death toll with over 212,000, while Brazil comes second with more than 148,000, and then Mexico. India has the most number of recoveries as of today with more than 5.9 million. Thanks be to God. And those are the reasons behind the news here in Australia and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Maria Latosa, reporting live from Perth, Australia.
Engineers at a university in San Diego, California, USA, build a squid bot which has soft ribs and can swim by itself. Linya Armilio tells us why.
Yes, this is a squid. It's alive and swimming. But it's not an ordinary squid. Engineers at the University of California, San Diego have created this squid-like robot that can swim untethered. By generating jets of water, it can propel itself. The SQUIDbot carries its own power source inside its body. It can also carry a sensor, such as a camera, for underwater exploration. The researchers detail their work in a recent issue of Bioinspiration and Biomimetics. Professor Michael Tolley, one of the senior authors of the paper and a professor in the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at UC San Diego, said they have recreated all the key features that squids use for high-speed swimming. The SQUIDbot can change its body shape, which improves swimming efficiency. The squid robot is made mostly from soft materials, such as acrylic polymer, with a few rigid 3D printed and laser-cut parts. The robot takes a volume of water into its body while storing elastic energy in its skin and flexible ribs. It then releases this energy by compressing its body and generates a jet of water to propel itself. At rest, the squid robot is shaped roughly like a paper lantern and has flexible ribs which act like springs along its sides. They clocked the robot's speed at about 18 to 32 centimeters per second, roughly half a mile per hour, which is faster than most other soft robots. The team also learned more about how energy can be stored in the elastic component of the robot's body and skin, which is later released to generate a jet. Using soft robots in underwater exploration is important to protect fish and coral, which could be damaged by rigid robots. But soft robots tend to move slowly and have difficulty maneuvering. Caleb Christensen, who led the study as part of his PhD work in Tolley's research group, revealed that after optimizing the design of the robot so that it would swim in a tank in the lab, it was especially exciting to see that the robot was able to successfully swim in a large aquarium among coral and fish, demonstrating its feasibility for real-world applications. Nina Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And those are the reasons behind the news, October 9, 2020. I am Jorlin Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.